Hi, Andy. Hi, Scott.
Well, hello there, Andy. How are you? Good. Mr. Scott, how are you?
I am brilliant like the rising sun. Taking it day by day, Scott.
You been drumming lately?
I have not. Tomorrow I have a music gig with Mrs. Jacobson's class at 11:15.
Oh, good.
It's
Good.
a student birthday and we're singing some songs, but the drums have been on hold for just a bit. Andy, could I ask you a technical question? So Heather and I are going to share, it's like a 5-slide PowerPoint presentation. If I present that tab, and when I'm done talking, she can just jump in without having to open it up herself.
Welcome to the January 19th, 2021 Board of Directors meeting for MSAD 51. Because this is virtual, I do have to start off with a roll call, so please say present or here when I read your name. Peter Bingham.
Here.
Kevin Desmond.
Present.
Harrington.
Here.
Ann Maximovich.
Here.
Ellen McGinley is present. Kate Perrin.
Here.
Mike Simmons.
Here.
Jennifer Stewart.
Here.
Mike Williams.
Here.
Elias Leggett-Barr. I do know that Madison is not joining us, so hopefully Elias will be able to join us in a little bit. So before we move on to our first item, which is recognition, there are some meetings where it feels like it's okay to just roll right into the agenda. And then there are some nights where it feels like tonight, it's important to kind of acknowledge where we all are as a community and as a nation. I don't know the right things to say to all of these things. I have struggled with it, not just today, but thinking about this evening and the responsibilities we have as leaders and elected officials. And I just wanted to acknowledge what I'm guessing a lot of us are feeling is kind of a collective grief and something that is found in the lives that we've lost as a nation, but also here in our own community. And maybe in the times where we're trying to explain to our kids and even to ourselves what happened last week at our nation's capital. And then also, in addition to all of those things, the reality that we are fully remote, once again, almost back to a year ago where we were in March. And then there's all the other things that we're struggling with in our personal lives that none of us may know about. And so I just wanted to acknowledge where we are, because I think, even though I don't have the perfect words, I think one thing I do know is that if we keep talking to each other, because there's a lot to talk about right now, that it will be helpful. And I know that the last time we were together as a board, we had a workshop, which gives us the opportunity to speak a little bit more openly and off agenda. And we spent a good amount of time talking about mental health. And with everything I just mentioned, mental health is a part of it. And so I know that this will not be the last time we talk about mental health. But I do think it's important to recognize that we need to continue to reach out to each other as residents and as community members, as elected officials, to find new ways to do what we're doing. Because what we are doing right now is not, I don't know if normal ever existed, but it's not normal. So I just felt disingenuous if I didn't say something. And so I wanted to say something. And I'm happy to pass off recognition in a different way. I wish we were together, but students and staff at Greeley High School put together a reenactment video for Dr. King's Montgomery bus boycott speech. And so I'd like to pass over, I'm guessing, Andy, to cue that up.
Actually, we have Heather Perkinson. Yeah, we have Heather Perkinson and we have Peter Scott.
Oh, wonderful.
We have some students from the high school who are, I believe, here to say a few words first.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in first. We've created a 5-slide mini PowerPoint presentation, which should be very brief. The students will have a part in that in just a minute, just to tell you a little bit about the Civil Rights Team and to set up the speech that you'll see in just a moment. So I'm going to present, if you'll bear with me a second here. Okay. Okay. Now, of course, I can't see you anymore, but that's okay. I think you can see me. Please let me know if you can't. So on behalf of the Civil Rights Team, thank you very much. We do have a good handful of students here from our team to speak with you in just a moment. A brief overview of the Civil Rights Team project in our school district. It's a statewide program of the Maine Attorney General's office. It goes from grades 3 to 12. It's currently in more than 175 Maine schools, public, private, rural, and urban, and it's in all 16 counties. The program was founded in 1996, and this year our Civil Rights Team is celebrating its 10th year, which we're very excited about here in our school system. This is called a focus sign. This is used statewide in our civil rights teams. You'll see it on the left of your screen. And we use it to kind of keep our conversations gauged around the main civil rights law and what we do to support that law in our own schools. I'm just going to read from you, for you, this excerpt that was from the Attorney General's website that explains what we do. The Civil Rights Team Project works to prevent bias-based behaviors, including violations of the Maine Civil Rights Act. We believe it is important to engage our school communities in thinking and talking about issues related to race and skin color, national origin and ancestry, religion, disabilities, gender, including gender identity and expression, and sexual orientation. Youth are central to this process. Real change in our schools must respect and include student voices. And at the bottom, we often talk about this. We believe all our students have a right to feel safe, welcome, and respected at their schools. This next slide belongs to Mrs. Perkinson and our students.
Hi, good evening. I'm Heather Perkinson. I'm the librarian at the high school, and I'm joined tonight by Riley and Adele and Penelope. Would each of you, Adele, would you like to start by saying hello and sharing a little something about a favorite moment or why the team is important to you?
Sure. I'm Adele. I am captain of the civil rights team. I joined because I think that civil rights is crucial to history and the present and the future. And so I think one of my favorite memories is open house day, and we had like our own little booth set up, and we passed around stickers, and people, for the parents and people, like to see that we are welcoming of every student that comes to Greeley High School.
And our expert videographer, Penelope.
Hi, I'm Penelope. I started civil rights team in middle school, and I think it's really important to talk about issues, just to make sure that everyone knows that they're always there, and to make progress with civil rights issues. My favorite memory from civil rights team is either the open house or the rainbow dance we put on. It was a really fun thing to organize, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Thank you. And Riley.
I'm Riley. I am a freshman, so I don't have a lot of memories with the high school civil rights team, but I joined in middle school, and one of my favorite memories from the middle school civil rights team was when we went to a statewide conference. And I think civil rights team is really important because I think it's really important to have all of the students at Greeley and every school to feel accepted and feel important.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, guys. Over the years, we've done a lot of things. The workshops and conferences are with kids from all over the state and really give our students a chance to expand their worldview and interact with lots of different types of students from all around Maine. One of our highlights from past years was winning a grant to bring a visiting artist to school. He helped students create a mural, which still hangs outside the gym. And over the years, we've organized various responses to incidents of hate, including writing letters of sympathy to synagogues and letters of support to communities and schools that were touched by such incidents. One year, we were lucky enough to host a Holocaust survivor, and she spoke to the entire school, and that was really very powerful, and that stands out in our memory. And every year we have certain things that we do that are tradition for the civil rights team. Our days of welcome. these pictures are from last year's Day of Welcome, and that's Mufalo Cheatham, who came to speak to the whole school, hugging Adele, and then some students signing the Ranger Pledge. We also always have our Spread the Word with the Special Olympics, and we have this tradition of reenacting speeches for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday.
Thank you, Heather. So on that note, this is the last slide before the video. This has been our annual tradition. We find it very special. It brings us together in a way, and the video I think you'll find is powerful in and of itself, and you'll see the spirit and energy that runs between people who participate. And that happens very much live. The event has grown from an in-library event to one that fills up the gymnasium. It's been great. So we haven't done the I Have a Dream speech. We think most people are familiar with that, and we have delved into other parts of Dr. King's broad body of work. So it was December 5th in 1955 when Martin Luther King spoke to a crowd of nearly 5,000 people at the Holt Street Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. And the following is a reenactment of his speech. We captured it on video. It features Greeley High School students, staff, and administrators. Thanks so much for your support.
Andy, if you want to cue up the video, thank you.
Greeley High School's Civil Rights Team would like to honor Martin Luther King on his birthday by bringing one of his most important speeches to life.
I don't have any audio. I don't know if
Please
others
keep
are
in mind that this is a reenactment of a speech
No
that
audio.
was originally
Yeah, no
written
audio.
and delivered over 50 years ago. One of the words has been changed because it is considered offensive if used by people writing or speaking in 2021. Although that is not the word that was originally spoken by Dr. King, because our intent is not to offend, but to educate, we felt it was important to change it.
Montgomery bus boycott speech.
One of his most important speeches to life. Please keep in mind that this is a reenactment of a speech that was originally written and delivered over 50 years ago. One of the words has been changed because
Still
it is
no audio,
considered
Andy.
offensive if used.
All right. Can you present it? Sorry about that.
Oh, sure, I could do that. Give me just a sec to find it because I don't have it queued up. I need to turn my mic off if I do this, though. Is that right?
Yes.
Let me just get it ready.
Really?
I'm not getting audio from that. Put your microphone back on.
Greeley High School's Civil Rights Team would like to honor Martin Luther King on his birthday by bringing one of his most important speeches to life. Please keep in mind that this is a reenactment of a speech that was originally written and delivered over 50 years ago. One of the words has been changed because it is considered offensive if used by people writing or speaking in 2021. Although that is not the word that was originally spoken by Dr. King, because our intent is not to offend, but to educate, we felt it was important to change it.
Montgomery bus boycott speech is one of Dr. King's first major addresses. Dr. King spoke to nearly 5,000 people at the Holt Street Baptist Church in Montgomery on December 5th, 1955, just 4 days after Mrs. Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to relinquish her seat on a Montgomery city bus. That arrest led to the first major civil rights campaign in the Deep South in half a century. In this speech, King urges the audience, which has just voted to boycott the buses, to continue that campaign until they achieve their goal of ending the humiliation and intimidation of Black citizens there and elsewhere in Montgomery, or to use his words, to gain justice on the buses in the city.
My friends, we are certainly very happy to see each of you out this evening. We are here this evening for serious business. We are here in a general sense because first and foremost, we are American citizens, and we are determined to apply our citizenship to the fullness of its meaning.
We are here also because of our love for democracy, because of our deep-seated belief that democracy transformed from thin paper to thick action is the greatest form of government on earth.
But we are here in a specific sense because of the bus situation in Montgomery. We are here because we are determined to get the situation corrected. This situation is not at all new. The problem has existed over endless years. For many years now, Blacks in Montgomery and so many other areas have been inflicted with the paralysis of crippling fears on buses in our community.
On so many occasions, Blacks have been intimidated and humiliated and oppressed because of the sheer fact that they were Black. I don't have time this evening to go into the history of these numerous cases. Many of them now are lost in a thick fog of oblivion, but at least one stands before us now with glaring dimensions.
Just the other day, just last Thursday to be exact, one of the finest citizens of Montgomery, not one of the finest Black citizens, but one of the finest citizens of Montgomery, was taken from a bus and carried to jail because she refused to give up her seat to a white person.
Now, the press would have us believe that she refused to leave a reserved section for Black people, but I want you to know this evening that there is no reserved section. The law has never been clarified on that point. Now, I think I speak with legal authority, not that I have any legal authority, but I think I speak with legal authority behind me, that the law, the city ordinance, has never been totally clarified.
Mrs. Rosa Parks is a fine person, and since it had to happen, I'm happy that it happened to a person like Mrs. Parks, for nobody can doubt the boundless outreach of her integrity. Nobody can doubt the height of her character. Nobody can doubt the depth of her Christian commitment and devotion to the teachings of Jesus.
And I'm happy since it had to happen. It happened to a person that nobody can call a disturbing factor in the community. Ms. Parks is a fine Christian person, unassuming, and yet there is integrity and character there. And just because she refused to get up, she was arrested.
And you know, my friends, there comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. There comes a time, my friends, when people get tired of being plunged across the abyss of humiliation, where they experience the bleakness of nagging despair. There comes a time when people get tired of being pushed out of the glittering sunlight of life's July and left standing amid the piercing chill of an alpine November. There comes a time.
We are here. We are here this evening because we are tired now. And I want to say that we are not here advocating violence. We have never done that. I want it to be known throughout Montgomery and throughout this nation that we are Christian people. We believe in the Christian religion. We believe in the teachings of Jesus. The only weapon that we have here tonight is the weapon of protest. That's all. And certainly, this is the glory of America with all its faults. This is the glory of our democracy. If we were incarcerated behind the iron curtains of a communistic nation, we couldn't do this. If we were dropped in the dungeon of a totalitarian regime, we couldn't do this. But the great glory of American democracy is the right to protest for right.
My friends, don't let anybody compare us in our actions with the Ku Klux Klan or the White Citizens Council. There will be no crosses burnt at bus stops in Montgomery. There will be no white persons taken from their home and pulled out on some distant road and lynched for not cooperating.
There will be nobody among us who will stand up and defy the Constitution of this nation. We only assemble here because of our desire to see right exist. My friends, we want it to be that we are going to work with grim and bold determination to gain justice on the buses in this city.
And we are not wrong. We are not wrong in what we are doing. If we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong. If we are wrong, Jesus of Nazareth was merely a utopian dreamer that never came down to earth. Wrong, justice is a lie. Love has no meaning. And we are determined to work and fight until justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
I want to say that in all of our actions, we must stick together. Unity is a great need of the hour, and if we are united, we can do many of the things we not only desire, but what we justly deserve. And don't let anybody frighten you. We are not afraid of what we are doing because we are doing it within the law.
There's never a time in our American democracy that we must ever think we're wrong when we protest. We reserve that right. When labor all over this nation came to see that it would be trampled over by capitalistic power, it was nothing wrong with labor getting together and
heritage of this land, we who have been oppressed for so long are tired of going through the long night of captivity, and now we are reaching out for the daybreak of freedom and justice and equality.
May I say to you, my friends, as I come to a close, and just giving some idea of why we are assembled here, that we must keep, and I want to stress this in all of our doings, in all of our deliberations here this evening, in all of the week and while. Whatever we do, we must keep God in the front. Let us be Christian in all of our actions.
But I want this evening that it is not enough for us to talk about love. Love is one of the pivotal points of the Christian faith. There's another side called justice, and justice is really love and calculation. Justice is love correcting that which revolts against love.
The Almighty God himself is not the only, not the God just standing out saying through Hosea, I love you, Israel. He is also the God that stands up before the nations and said, be still and know that I am God. And if you do not obey me, I will break the backbone of your power and slap you out of the orbits of your international and national relationships.
Standing beside love is always justice. And we are only using the tools of justice. Not only are we using the tools of persuasion, but we've come to see that we've got to use the tools of coercion. Not only is this thing a process of education, but it is also a process of legislation.
As we stand and sit here this evening, and as we prepare ourselves for what lies ahead, let us go out with a grim and bold determination that we are going to stick together. We are going to work together.
Right here in Montgomery, when the history books are written in the future, somebody will have to say, there lived a race of people, black people, fleecy locks and black complexion, a people who had the moral courage to stand up for their rights, and thereby they injected a new meaning into the veins of history and civilization.
And we're gonna do that. God grant that we will do it before it's too late. As we proceed with our program, let us think of these things. But before leaving, I want to say this. I want to urge you. You have voted for this boycott, and you have done it with a great deal of enthusiasm, and I want to express my appreciation to you on behalf of everybody here.
Now let us go out to stick together and stay with this thing until the end. Now it means sacrificing, yes, it means sacrificing at points. But there are some things that we've got to learn to sacrifice for. And we've got to come to the point that we are determined not to accept a lot of things that we have been accepting in the past.
So I'm urging you now. We have the faculties for you to get to your jobs, and we are putting. We have the cabs there at your service. Automobiles will be at your service. And don't be afraid to use up any of the gas. If you have it, you are fortunate enough to have a little money. Use it for a good cause. Now, my automobile is going to be in it. It has to be in it. And I'm not concerned about how much gas I'm going to use. I want to see this thing work.
And we will not be content until oppression is wiped out of Montgomery and really out of America. We won't be content until that is done. We are merely insisting on the dignity and worth of every human personality. And I don't stand here. I'm not arguing for any selfish person.
I've never been on a bus in Montgomery, but I would be less than a Christian if I stood back and said, because I don't ride the bus, because I don't have to ride the bus, that it doesn't concern me. I will not be content. I can hear a voice saying, if you do it unto the least of these, my brother, you do it to me.
And I won't rest. I will face intimidation and everything else, along with these other stalwart fighters for democracy and for citizenship. We don't mind it, so long as justice comes out of it. And I've come to see now that as we struggle for our rights, maybe some of them will have to die. But somebody said, if a man doesn't have something that he'll die for, he isn't fit to live.
I think we can clap on our microphones, right? Thank you all so very much. It's so nice to see so many students. We don't get to see that many students normally in our meeting. So thank you. And by any means, if anybody else from the board wants to say anything, please speak up.
Okay. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to engage with the civil rights team and for bringing this just really powerful speech to us today. And I feel overwhelmed that we're in the year 2021 and still addressing the same things that he was in a lot of ways. But thank you for your all commitment to the civil rights team and that work in our district. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think also it's just so impressive in a year as unprecedented as this, where usually throughout my 4 years of high school, it's been in the auditorium, as Mr. Scott alluded to, how amazingly it was transferred to a virtual format and it didn't lose any of its power. And I think just congratulations on providing such a powerful video. And I think it's almost great in the sense that this can be sent out everywhere now, so it's captured on an online format. So that provides a benefit in itself.
Good point, Elias. All right, seeing no other comments, we will move on to our next item, which is approval of minutes. I'll do a motion in a second, ask for any discussion, and then we'll do a roll call for the vote. So do I have a motion for approval of December 14th, 2020 minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Okay, I need second. Okay, I heard Mike Williams. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none. All right, so roll call for the vote. Peter Bingham?
Yes.
Kevin Desmond?
Yes.
Margot Harrington?
Yes.
Ann Maximovich?
Yes.
Tyler McGinley, yes. Kate Perrin?
Yes.
Mike Simmons?
Yes.
Jennifer Stewart?
Yes.
Mike Williams?
Yes.
And Elias Leggett-Barr?
Yeah.
Okay, and then moving on to the second approval, do I have a motion for the January 4th, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right, I heard Anne. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go back through. Peter Bingham?
Yes.
Kevin Desmond?
Yes.
Margot Harrington?
Yes.
Ann Maximovich?
Yes.
Tyler McGinley, yes. Kate Perrin?
Yes.
Mike Simmons?
Abstain. I wasn't present.
Thank you. Jennifer Stewart?
Yes.
Mike Williams?
Yes.
And Elias Leggett-Barr?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we will now move into public comment. I know that there are some people that have emailed, and I will let Andy moderate. Just it's the same rules. I'll start the timer for 3 minutes. Andy, you can go ahead.
All right, Sean McBride of Cumberland.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sean McBride, Cumberland. Ann Kerr Maximowicz, parent supporter of socialism, anarchism, and Marxism, who on 10/5 did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to honor the American flag or the troops fighting for her freedoms, who was on the MSAD 51 Equity and Inclusion Committee and School Board, recently decided to turn her attacks, rage, and hatred toward a member of the Cumberland Town Council on what they posted on social media almost 2 years ago. Out of context, of course. You see, progressive leftists want to lash out at anyone they can, and their hatred's real, but generally their facts are weak. It's called selective outrage culture. They support critical race theory in our schools with your tax dollars, shaming your children because they were born, creating division. Same approach Superintendent Jeff Porter did on 6/2 when he sent out his letter to the community, effectively stating any student in Greeley should be ashamed because of the color of their skin or their hardworking parents. As a reminder to all, he's done nothing to heal the towns from this letter in the 6 months since. He's also skipped out on 2 requests to meet to talk about these issues and devise a real plan to move forward with the town of Cumberland. Frankly, no one cares about your race, gender identification, or skin color, just the content of your character. Martin Luther King taught us that. Selective outrage culture is also what folks have experienced from comments placed on a Facebook group called Anti-Racist Organizing for Cumberland North Yarmouth. You see, it's a private Facebook group, which means they can selectively let members in and ban others from entry, or simply kick members out. This page is run by none other than Ann Maximowicz and Eliza Batchelder. Doesn't seem very educational, inclusive, or accepting, does it? Don't worry though, Ann, there are plenty of members who send me your rants as screenshots. Also, you have people all around you that are horrified by your behavior, just like Chair Tyler McGinley. People are reaching out to me unsolicited. Free speech, as you've learned, works both ways. And you see, Ann, you don't recognize what you're doing by advancing your own personal agenda as an elected official is illegal. But the concept of facts, due process, and the law seems difficult for progressive leftists to understand. Many times they'll just instantly trigger. What's one of the opening questions to join this Facebook group? What example of white privilege do you see in Cumberland and North Yarmouth? You see Ann stockpiling a list of white privilege issues to come after you next. Most likely they'll be false, but hey, let's not let facts get in the way of counterculture. I'd like to leave you with a couple of quotes. One from Candace Owens. We need to stop calling them liberals and begin referring to them exactly as they are, American communists. From Martin Luther King. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. That's why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil, triumphant. Martin Luther King would be ashamed at what you've done to divide the towns of Cumberland and North Yarmouth with your equity platforms. His goal was unity, and your goal appears to be division. We'll make some changes in June. Have a nice night.
Thanks. Andy, do you have anyone else to speak this evening?
Yep. Next up is Kim Vine of Cumberland.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to be the opposite voice of what you just heard. I have had children in the school since fall of 2001, and my youngest won't graduate until 2026. So 25 years of being an MSAD 51 parent with no gap at all. There have certainly been times that I have wished that a teacher or an administrator would handle something different. Because we're all humans. However, the response this summer to the racial unrest is not one of those times. That was a time when I was extremely proud of our town. I wish that Mr. McBride had not just left this meeting because I would like to find a way for people who do not understand systemic racism to learn that it does exist. One quick example is I went to get a Band-Aid today at Rite Aid. This Band-Aid, I don't know if you can see it, is the darkest shade that is offered, Walgreens. And if that is such a simple way of realizing that our society does not put people of other colors to the same level of equity that we are. And that is not a guilt. That is not something that is being accused at anyone in particular. It's just shining a light on an area of our country where we, as Martin Luther King has often pointed out, we are failing to do that. So I wanted to make sure that there was a voice tonight that was opposite of what you just heard. Please continue the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Jennifer Mancini of North Yarmouth.
Hi, good evening. Wanted to second the support for the equity work. I think it's a big hill to go up, but it's something that we have to keep climbing. So thank you so much to the board and the administration for putting that forward. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the pandemic and what's going to happen afterwards. So I want to look forward to life after this particular pandemic, and I want to thank the school board and the administration for the hard work that they've been putting into meeting the varying needs of students at this time. And I want to say that coming out of this is a hope, but also it's a daunting task too. And I want to support a robust mental health support system for the students and the families who need it. In fact, as I look to the future where more pandemics are inevitable, I want to advocate for encouraging students in the fields of mental health, social services, social sciences, psychology, neurosciences, and behavioral health. Because
Jennifer, I do have to interrupt you. You have hit your 3 minutes. I have to be consistent. I apologize.
Okay.
I do encourage anyone that does exceed the 3 minutes, you're welcome to send what you've prepared to the board, and we can review it that way as well.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you. So we'll move on to presentations now, and equity has been a topic already this evening, and we will continue with that topic. We wanted to start with reading publicly a joint statement that was delivered or made on December 11th of 2020, not that long ago. And myself and Anne are going to split up this statement as it is a bit lengthy and don't need to hear just from me the whole time. And I just wanted to kind of preface all of this as well as the presentation. Myself following and Anne are going to split up. As a board, doing all we can to be as transparent as possible and to continue to make equity work a priority. We do have pushback from a small group of community members here, but we will continue to show what we are doing. We'll continue to share. We will continue to ask questions and continue to learn on what's best for our district. So all of this is part of that conversation. The Department of Education, Maine School Boards Association, Maine School Superintendents Association, Maine Administrators of Services for Children with Disabilities, Maine Education Association, Maine Principals Association, and Maine Curriculum Leaders Association enthusiastically affirm the right of every student to an equitable education. We profoundly and steadfastly support the educators and districts in Maine who are taking on the work of understanding and dismantling racism and inequity in our schools and communities. We urge all Maine schools and educators to accept their role and responsibilities in examining and addressing the inequities that have long existed in our society and institutions. We define educational equity as providing a student as providing each student a legitimate opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive in school and beyond. Equity depends on a deliberate and systemic abolition of inequities that have been sewn into the fabric of American society. These persistent inequities have long disadvantaged students on the basis of race, sex, gender, gender expression, language, physical and intellectual ability, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, indigenous origin, religion, and all aspects of human identity that have been subjugated within our society. We recognize that education is one of many systems that have had a role in perpetuating racial inequities, and that through close examination of our system, we can and must strive to attain diversity, equity, and inclusion of all voices and experiences. We believe this work is central to living up to our promises of providing an outstanding education for every Maine learner and continuing to be a public education system of excellence. We recognize and commit to our role and duty as Maine public education leaders to actively partner with all schools in constructing a new educational paradigm founded on the certainty that every student can and will be successful when schools is a welcoming, safe place for all school community members to bring their whole identities with them. Social and emotional behavior supports are understood as a critical prerequisite to academic learning. Students' primary and home languages are recognized as assets, cultivated and leveraged. Every educator in every role shares the responsibility for ensuring equity for every student and participates in equity education, both in teacher and administrator preparation programs and ongoing throughout their careers. Families are meaningfully engaged as partners in their children's education and welcomed into our schools. All academic and non-academic programming is culturally responsive and co-constructed with its community members.
Examining racism and inequity is difficult work. As each student of Maine is a future citizen of our global society, we believe this work that needs to be engaged in respectfully and civilly by all schools and communities in our state. Understanding and addressing racism and inequity will take many different forms, all of which are valid and needed. Already, many educators, school districts, and organizations are exploring this work in some of the following ways. Defining with school and community members what makes a safe and welcoming place for all and committing to the vision. Reviewing your SAU's controversial issues policy and best practices for engaging in discussions responsibly and responsibly. Engaging community members in discussions and actions to ensure that schools are a safe and welcoming place for all students. Engaging in equity audits to examine a variety of practices and programs. Expecting all school personnel to engage in professional learning about anti-racism and culturally responsive practices. Reviewing and revising curricula and materials to ensure they are well-rounded, decolonized, and representing all experiences. Adopting anti-racism instructional practices, programs, and policies. Establishing diversity, equity, and inclusion committees of stakeholders. Establishing expectations that every student will achieve and is challenged with rigorous curricula. Creating, supporting, or amplifying student civil rights teams within each school. We believe in the power and responsibilities that are bestowed on our educational institutions to provide a safe and equitable place in which all students can thrive and where students are encouraged to examine their world, their beliefs, and their role in society through multiple perspectives. We believe all students, all families, and all human beings deserve to be celebrated, included, and heard. And we are committed to supporting our students and educators in taking on the challenge of examining and changing our practices. We stand united in our commitment to this work and our support of the educators who are courageously stepping up and stepping into the learning, growing, and changing that is needed. Our organizations will continue to provide resources, support, and technical assistance as we all expand our own knowledge and capacity to engage in this critically important work on behalf of our students and our collective future.
Thank you, Anne. So we'll continue to build on this with the next presentation, but I think it's important to recognize that our school, our district is not unique in this work, that this is clearly a supported work by the numerous associations that put out this joint statement. So I think it's just a great framework to remind us that we are doing the right work and that we are, I think the other part that I really appreciated about this statement is that it really gave us some good action steps as a state and gave some tangible things that we can plan and look forward to. And just as a quick side note, that on January 8th, I think that's maybe last week or a little bit past that, the DOE also really released an anti-racist education for all of Maine, which is a series of free workshops for Maine educators. And I do believe that Jeff, Superintendent Porter, has shared that with our staff in hopes that we have some participation from our district during those workshops. So thank you, Anne, for helping me read that. And then I'd like to introduce Director of Southern Maine Partnership at USM, Angela Atkinson-Duina. And she is going to give us a presentation about the USM partnership that a small portion of our equity committee will be participating in with, I believe, 9 other districts. Maybe that number has grown, but that our first session will be this Friday. So we're really grateful, Angela, to have you with us. And just for the board, we are going to, Angela is going to be open to questions and answers after. So jot down questions and we'll figure out how that works after.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I've been relegated to the basement in my house since my family's up there having dinner. I don't know if Penelope is still on, but I do want to give her props for having the best background, I think. So I wish my background were that colorful and interesting. I do have a little slide presentation to share with you. And I also have some handouts that I can share in the link here. Let's see if I can. I'm a little more skilled with Zoom. So I've just shared it's just a shared folder that has it has our presentation and also has a couple handouts that include some more details. So let's see. I'm going to. Yep, I think I'm there. Is that good? All right, great. So I'm just going to give, a brief overview. I have about, I think, 6 or 7 slides here, and then we will have plenty of time for questions or discussion if you have any more questions. And I'm just going to start really at the kind of simplest level, like what is the community of practice? Because there is kind of some general characteristics that they have in common. It's some kind of group focused on collective learning. It has a characteristic of commitment and competence in a shared domain. So it kind of assumes that the members are committed and have some competence to share as a part of the group. It's not just, a random group of people that sit around and have lunch. And then they also kind of commit to developing a shared set of resources and practices for addressing recurring problems. And that's kind of the model that we've used whenever we started to create this group in our region. Right now, we do have 9 districts who have signed on, plus the Southern Maine Partnership at USM and also the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium. We consider us all partners. That includes 1 designated equity assistance center, which is supported by the U.S. Department of Education. That's MEC. I'll tell you a little bit about that role. We are a regional university partner at the Southern Maine Partnership. I'll tell you a little bit more about that organization too, and what that entails. And then plus we have 9 districts from around our kind of local Southern Maine region. And in total, those districts have 31,450 students, and they represent what I think of as Maine's kind of diverse communities. We have a rural district, we have 3 small cities, we have 1 town, and we have 3 suburban districts. Together, that's 18% of the K through 12 students in Maine. It's 16% of the students from low-income families in Maine. It also encompasses 56% of the English learners in the state of Maine and 65% of the students who identify as Black or African American in Maine. So that's who has joined the group. I'll also tell you a little bit of the backstory about how we started to form. It's about a year and a half ago when we started having conversations with some representatives at the Maine Department of Education and also with some other local districts around an idea of coming together focused on the topic of equity. We were also inspired by some groups that are run out of the University of Pennsylvania, and their groups, they call them Equity and Excellence Consortiums, and they've actually been around for over 20 years. districts coming together to focus on equity in their community, and for example, districts have come together to focus on recruitment of diverse educators, or they've focused on achievement of low economic students, or they've focused on addressing the racial disparities that we see in our outcomes for students. So we were kind of inspired by some of that work, and we talked by the people that have been leading that work for a while. And then the pandemic hit, and I honestly thought, I was like, "Oh, we're never going to. This is never going to get off the ground." Schools have a lot of already have way more than on their plate than really they have the capacity to address. And so we just kind of put it on pause for a while. That was in March, when we were starting to get ready to kind of launch it and introduce and kind of invite districts to join. But then later in the year, around June, I think we started to see some of the differences in impact as a result of the pandemic on students, low economic students, some of our rural students that didn't have access to steady internet, or to the racial disparities that we were seeing in some of our urban communities around how this pandemic was impacting people differently. And so I reached out to a couple of district superintendents. I said, we have this project that we had been working on with MAC. Is this something that is worth kind of continuing to develop and bring forward? Or is it really, should we just forget about it at this point? And those superintendents said yes. They didn't know for sure if they would join, but they thought it was worth the effort to continue developing. So that's what I committed to doing as part of the director for Southern Maine Partnership, to continue developing the potential for us to start this group. And I think it's everything. It seems to happen a little slower in the pandemic than in normal years. And so this right now is kind of when we're just getting started. It's taken kind of this fall part to get everything launched. Our schedule, we have mapped out about, I think it's 8 sessions total. Our first 2 sessions are coming up next week, or this Friday and then Wednesday. Those 2 sessions will kind of be time for us to form the foundation of the group together, set our norms, and then start to lay out the plan for the rest of our work together. And we hope, although as things look now, it's looking less and less likely that we might have the possibility of having the group meet together live in June. And we have about 47, almost 50 people that will be participating in these sessions from the different districts. Topics that we might discuss. In general, the process will allow district teams to be able to analyze their practice around equity, to develop plans to address equity-related issues, and implement best practices to address any gaps. The topics that we've listed here are really based on the expertise of MEC by the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium and the Southern Maine Partnership. So these are topics that they've dealt with. They were also topics that were kind of suggested to us from different kind of thought partners who were working with us as we developed this project. I'm not going to read through all of them, but they are there. And then a little bit, just so you have some background on the partners who are engaged in this project. I'm here as a representative of the Southern Maine Partnership, which is an initiative of the USM Ed Leadership Program. I'm also an assistant professor in that program. I just joined at the beginning of last year. But the Southern Maine Partnership has been around for over 25 years, and linking schools and districts and the university in support of students. We have approximately 25 districts in the Southern and Central Maine region that join us each year, and we focus on professional learning, networking, and topic-based forums. The Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium, we reached out to them. They are the Equity Assistance Center that's assigned to our region. Those are centers that they receive funding from the U.S. Department of Education to do their work focused on equity. And the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium, it's the kind of second, third, or fourth, I think the third year that they've been the Equity Assistance Center for our region, but they had served as the Equity Assistance Center for 22 years already. So they really bring a rich history of providing technical assistance and training focused on increasing access to educational opportunities, increasing academic achievement for ethnically, economically, and culturally and linguistically diverse students. I also wear the hat, actually, of a parent. I have a daughter in the middle school, and I have a son in the high school. We have been in the district since they entered kindergarten, all but 2 years when we went to abroad to Canada for a few years. And whenever we told them, if we go to Canada, would you like to, if we come back, how important is it for you to keep going to school in MSAD 51? And they were hands down. They did not want to try any other place. If we were going to come back, they wanted to make sure to come back to their schools here. And to me, that's the best selling point, is what my kids say about their day and their work. But when I look at it as a parent and I think about the work that our district is doing, I just wanted to also connect it to some of where I see some of these connections to our group, the community of practice, and the goals. Of course, it doesn't matter so much what I think, but more what the board does. But I see, our commitment to collective responsibility as being part of that connection. The board has named a specific focus on equity and diversity, and has noted the necessity of supporting the work of the equity leadership steering committee. And then also, I think, we all do aspire to have our students ready for global citizenship. I know I certainly expect that of my own children who have grandparents in other countries. And, having that broader outlook is really important to us personally. So I think I'm going to see if I can stop sharing. Stop. There we go. And I'll just open it up if you have.
So I would welcome, this is a great time to ask questions from the board. I've been part of this conversation from the beginning, so I'm going to open it up to the board. So please unmute yourself and ask any questions you may have.
I'm happy to ask one. Angela, I thank you for being here tonight and just kind of giving us an overview of the plan. I'm excited to hear that the first meeting is coming up in January. I, just as a board member and in my former role as chair, have had so many parents and community members reach out to me, just really supporting this work, supporting it happening in our schools, supporting these conversations. And so to see this plan, to see it happening with other districts, to see different types of districts represented, I'm just really happy to support this and to see it moving forward. And I'm looking forward to some periodic updates from the Equity Committee, hopefully at our board meetings, minutes, et cetera.
Thank you, Kate. I mean, I think even, this has been my profession for a long time. And I think, if you're going to focus on equity, it really is important to have kind of a group working with you. Anyway, I think that's kind of one of the benefits of coming together on this.
Mike Williams?
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Angela, this is fantastic. I'm quite excited about this work. Just a quick question so I haven't been in part of the discussions, but just interested in what you think the type of support us as a board should provide to ensure that this is as successful as possible.
I'm gonna leave that up to them to tell you what they need, because my guess is that your steering committee would be able to communicate with you about what kind of resources they feel they need and what kind of support that they need. One of the kind of underlying principles that we've used as we've been thinking about this project is just valuing the importance of district self-determination. So we understand that the equity challenges that each district might face will be really unique to them. And so I think, that's just important to acknowledge as at work, even if we're coming together, we, understand that districts will take their own path forward.
Tyler, I have a question about, I don't exactly know how to say it. It seems like these are big ideas that have been worked on, and different districts are at different, throughout the journey. They're in different areas. And I'm just wondering how quickly we can make changes that are felt by students.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that really depends on the plan that you decide and the focus area that your plan specifies. I think, I have a little bit of a historical view on this topic too. And I think it's important to recognize that, equity isn't new, right? It's been around since the at least since the federal legislation in Title I from 1965. So I think, to me, where this latest wave is a little bit different is that instead of saying like special groups are now in charge of equity, like your Title I people are in charge of equity for our low-income families, or our English language teachers are in charge of equity for our English learners. That this is about communities committing to, being responsible for the education of all their youth. I think you have Julie, who's carries the torch for our special ed community, and those people have always existed. I think, like I said, what's changing is it's more about everybody taking ownership of their collective responsibility for all the kids in our communities.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to ask Angela directly while she's here? I believe our next steps, at least as it relates to the board, of course, we will give updates, but our hope is that we would be able to bring a work plan of sorts to the board to have it approved. And Margot, I would assume that that would be an opportunity for us to discuss what those action steps are and how they relate and how they affect students directly. So I'm seeing that as an opportunity to talk about the answers to your questions directly to Margot. Jeff, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you to Angela. Angela extended the invitation for us to look into this, and really appreciate it. This is a tremendous opportunity, and Southern Maine Partnership is a great organization, USM. I think we're going to, in MEC, we're going to learn a lot. And we have a team of, I think it's 6 people or 5 or 6, depends on the meeting, who are involved from our district. And we'll be attending those workshops. And I think the first one's Friday, if I remember correctly. First workshop. So we're really excited about it, and to move forward with this work. This is really tremendous and just very positive, and it feels like a good fit for our district. Thank you.
I'm just going to add one more thing that kind of spurred this topic that I think school boards have to be interested in because of their responsibility to kind of oversee the fiscal resources in a district. And so we started seeing MEC was doing work in many districts in Maine, and they were doing kind of the same work in each district. And so this kind of collaborative approach does allow us to have technical support that is shared among districts at a much more reasonable cost. Also working with MEC, they're able to, as part of their contract with us is underwritten by their funds from the federal government. So that was another important factor. I mean, we did kind of talk with 2 other groups that had provided technical assistance to school districts around this kind of work, and neither one, and because of they didn't have kind of the access to the federal funds, their prices were much higher, and so I just want to point that out because I know that boards do have to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Angela. It's a super important point, especially to this group. So, so thank you again for your time. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday, and maybe another update in the future. So,
yes.
So thank you again.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Have a great night. Okay, moving on to our next presentation, shifting gears a little bit to live streaming. Dirk Van Curren, are you ready?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Yes, definitely a shift to what's happening actually at the schools right now. I'm going to go ahead and start presenting my screen on what is happening with not only the equipment, but the things that are available to our teachers and the work that they've been doing. So what I've taken you to is the staff resources page, and you should be able to see distance learning for teachers here. So the rollout of the equipment has been happening. I'm going to take you to the equipment shortly, but this is basically the work of a group of people that run K-12 with administrators, teachers, Jeff and myself and Donna Green, to basically figure out what distance learning looks like and how do we make this happen. Not only is the equipment necessary, but if we look at this grid here, you can see that we go from the what is learning down to what's concurrent learning. And this is kind of where we ended up following down into the lighter yellow, where what is video conferencing, what is live streaming to keep this as synchronous learning. So this kind of gave us a framework to then move into, there's 4 areas of this website. We have what is the teaching and learning, which that page is, hold on. This was done by a partial group of the work group of this video, and then the slideshows explaining this to teachers and what all the definitions are. Then we went ahead, and because we are a Google for Education school, we wanted to make sure that they had all the tools they needed to be able to see and use Meets to its fullest extent. Part of the funds were used to purchase Google Enterprise, which gives us all the bells and whistles for Google Meet, plus some other things that aren't relevant to distance learning or live streaming. There's also the 4th page, which is 2 areas that will actually be used by administrators and teachers for what are the expectations of students and expectations of families when they are doing live streaming from home. So how does this all happen? We're going to go to what is the video conferencing equipment, which we'll start with the camera and sound bar. This is the Poly Studio USB video bar. It's basically a what we'd call, you see in your home television sets of a sound bar on steroids. It has the ability to focus in the camera on the speaker intuitively into the camera. So it'll follow the teacher if they move around the room, giving them more capabilities than just staying stagnant in front of a camera. We have combined that with what they call a hot foot that will allow it to be on a tripod. So it gives the mobility for the teacher to put this where they choose to in the classroom. Some are putting in the back of the classrooms, others in the front. Some are focusing on the whiteboard. Some are turning it around and showing the entire class so that the kids at home have a better connection of feeling that they are at actual school and they're there for learning. We also combine this with a monitor. The monitor expands what they normally would see on their laptop so that they can actually put the Google Meet up on this monitor and see all the kids that are at home in a tiled view. I think most of you have figured out how to use the tiled mode within Google Meet, so they can see all the kids at the same time and also see the kids when they raise their hands. Moving on down, all teachers. So this equipment, just so to reiterate, is 412. The elementary level has a different approach to how they're going to handle the live at-home learning. But all teachers will be receiving the iPad Air, including the pencil, of which the iPad Air will also come with the ability to mount it on this kind of holder to turn it into a document camera if they choose, or a third screen. The tablet, also using a product or a software called Jamboard, will allow them to actually write on it like a whiteboard. It'll be broadcast to all the students through the projector in the classroom, but also onto the presentation like I'm presenting now, and the kids would be able to see it right from the Jamboard versus having the camera focus on the whiteboard, which sometimes can be problematic if there's glare. So that's all these three items. So the iPad Air, which has just been released, plus the pencil and the holder, should really enhance the creativity side of teaching as well. This is the highest pixel rated camera. So from a standpoint of imagery, if it's say a lab and they're showing a lab project, it'll be very clear. Then we're going to move on down. All our 6-8 classrooms got a new projector, ultra short throw. They've been pushed off for a couple years of getting the ultra short throw projectors. So those have all been installed and been getting great reviews from teachers on how clear these are. The laser is definitely a step up from a bulb projector. We also have installed these in the process of installing them in MIW, because there was additional funds available in the first round of CARE funds. And we're halfway through the installation of that. Mabel I. Wilson, for the most part, also requested these portable PAs that are wireless so that when they're speaking through masks, they're well heard within the classroom. You don't get that muffledness. It was very important at the younger age to have that amplification capabilities. We also have a few, 8 of these interactive Newline displays, which basically work as a large laptop or an iPad for that matter. You can have it as basically a flat screen TV and projecting what you want. We also have the stands that will rotate these to be horizontal to the floor and make it a table, because there are 20 touch points on these, and there's certain programs that will make for more interactive learning at the elementary level. Kids can actually stand at more of a table and use it than it being projected on the board. So when COVID leaves our norm and we're able to all be around one of these, they're pretty dynamic. So that pretty much sums up all the equipment that has been put into place for the live streaming. There was, of course, a lot of work that was done in the, I'm going to stop presenting here, on the network, which I don't think you wanted to see a bunch of cables and switches. Wouldn't excite me either. So, and then there was also some things that were done for our video class at the high school. We've upgraded you've seen the camera and the equipment that we've done at the GCA for your live board meetings. We've got an enhanced unit for the GCA. We also got another unit that will allow the athletics to do a better live streaming of athletics, not only for this time when we can't be in the stadium and watching the athletics, but it will be able to be used afterwards. And we're really pushing on the video classroom participants to become those videographers and produce things, not only sporting events, but also like a Today Show type thing, or news, or weekly news events, or even going out and broadcasting things like open night or open mic at the middle school and those types of things. So really boosted that up. And then also some of the equipment in the GCA that wasn't purchased when they built the GCA. So quick, down, dirty, lots of things moving. We've been straight out since, I would say, March with everybody out, but also with these funds. You've probably seen pallets of things moving around schools, but I also will open it up for questions that you might have. And I know that the other administrators are here on the call, so they might be able to add some light on what's happening at the different levels as well. So thank you.
And Dirk, before you jump into questions from the board, we should also just add that we've had a group, and Dirk referenced it, of teachers and administrators that have been working on, for several months now, working on launching live streaming. And we've had 2 subgroups that have actually worked on instructional practice using the equipment. We've had a group of 15 teachers who have been using kind of not this equipment, but basically whatever they can do to make this work before the equipment was ordered and brought in. So we have some kind of in-house resident experts on live streaming. We also have had a subgroup working on procedures for live streaming and making sure we're up to date on that. And we begin kind of more the formal training on Friday, although we're also bumping it out to next Wednesday as well for 6 through 12 to get more training on this. So we've had a good group working on this and helping to steer the ship. I just want to thank Dirk and the tech team for all their work on getting all this equipment in the hands of teachers, along with everything else. It's just been a tremendous feat.
Yeah, Jeff, I can't reiterate the group, not only that work group, but also all those first teachers that have stepped up in our alpha group and now people in the beta group. They're really looking at peer-to-peer help within the buildings because the number of pieces of equipment and also the uniqueness of every single setup. Everybody teaches a little different, but they all have the same equipment. So they're all working together. What works best for them? So having all these mavens within the buildings helping each other to come up with figure out what they're trying to do and then try to get the equipment to match and have them teach at the highest level using this equipment has been really fun to watch, and the amount of work that they're putting in above and beyond is phenomenal. So that's great. I see Mike Williams, you have a question, or is your hand still up from before? Kevin Desmond's got a hand up.
I think my hand was up from before. Sorry about that.
So mine actually is up, Dirk. I had a couple of questions. Thanks for your work and that of your staff. A couple of things, and I'm going to ask you about resistance from anybody in a minute, but we could defer that over to administrators. But it would be really helpful. It's great to talk about this and look at the imagery, but if there's a way that we can put together a board demo that would be more like where the board goes to schools, so that we can see in real time as people are elevating onto the system what it is like to be using this, what the experience is for the teacher and for the student. Perhaps you could consider that. I think that I'll throw that out to you. Do you think that's something that could be put together?
Yeah, I think if we weren't remote tonight, I was going to have something more hands-on, touchy-feely at the GCA for you to see the camera working and projecting and what that room, a mock room would look like. So, but I think what we also have an opportunity as these mavens, the work that they're doing is maybe capturing some of that, those setups, and have them actually explain how they're using it would be beneficial.
But seeing it in real time and of what people are experiencing, I think that can be much more informative to the board than it would be looking at it in a demo mode within the GCA.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I would find that helpful. I like the stuff that you just showed mere moments ago with the expectations of students and families, and that piece of having people elevate each other's use of the system, I think is fantastic. Could we ask the administrators thoughts, questions, or any place where there are challenges in the implementation?
I think we're still trying to not only figure out the equipment, because a lot of it is, what is this that's been dropped on me, and getting it hooked up and making sure that all things work. Like, I know that we've had some issues with just a monitor's not working here or there, but I think for the most part, once people get the camera, the poly cameras, and they hook them up, they find they're pretty easy to use, especially just from a camera standpoint. Then they start expanding out and figuring out, okay, now I've got to match it to my teaching. So from a hurdle of the equipment, I don't think we're seeing as much as maybe we thought we would have, because it is so intuitive once it's hooked up, and it ties right into Google Meet. They've already been using Google Meet since March for all the red learning there. So there will be some, I would say, resistant groups, but I think because the number of people that are working together within the departments, and you're going to see the peers helping these other people over the line to get to where they need to be.
Is the staff development day on Friday focusing on streaming?
Part of it is just explaining to the people that just received or are receiving the equipment, the explanation, kind of what I just gave you of, this is what's coming, this is what's going to show up at your door. Basically, we were going to let them get it on tomorrow, but it now will be a week from tomorrow that they'll be getting the rest of their equipment.
Okay.
6/12.
Thank you.
Chris, did you want to add?
Well, yeah, Kevin, I don't know if you were looking for an answer from the building specifically or from the, but I'm happy to just add a little bit more. I'm happy to speak because I think our teachers at the high school have had the most opportunity at this point. We have about 50% of our teachers now have the equipment in hand. About 8 staff members got it in late December. An additional 21 staff got it just when we came back from vacation, and then the remainder were scheduled to get it this week. Yeah, I think Dirk is correct that the most challenging component of this is merging the capabilities of the technology with the instructional planning and design that a teacher is used to. And that's what we've been stressing with our teachers. I think for the non-tech savvy individual, there are some things to figure out here, and that will take time. I can't give enough credit to the group of teachers that did take this on right away. We've had a small core who have been incredibly helpful to many of our staff in getting set up. And it is that peer-to-peer learning that's going to make this successful. Yeah, and I think, I just, in my conversations with the parents who've been reaching out to me about this and what it will mean for their child's education, I've been, while expressing my hope for our ability to better connect with students In our instructional leadership team meeting last Friday, we talked about this as a through line to students at home, in terms of maintaining a connection, maintaining a relationship, building upon the learning to them. So while I have been expressing that hope, I think some patience will also be important, because for some people this will merge immediately with how they roll in their classrooms, and for others it will take more time. And on that point, I just want to just make a quick note about language. Dirk used the term concurrent learning early on in his presentation, and that's what we've been stressing with our staff, only because I think when we say live streaming, the implication is that you're just turning the camera on and watching what's happening, and our focus is on integrating the students who are at home as a part of the learning experience to the greatest extent possible, and thereby including them in what we're doing. So there's just a quick attempt to summarize a whole lot of things for you from the high school perspective.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Hey, Margot, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Chris, can I ask you a question about what you were just talking about? Does that mean that teachers will be mixing their cohorts by virtue of having this technology, or are they, how does it really work with two groups of people learning the same thing at different times and crossing over?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. How does it really work? That's a question that I think we've all been grappling with, because I think it's one that, yeah, I think it works more easily than others, depending on the goals that you have and the way you're going to approach teaching and learning. I think, and so with our teachers in the meeting we had last week, we've been sort of talking about different modes, different instructional modes that the teacher might take, and how this might fold into those modes. So for example, if I'm the teacher more or less leading direct instruction, where I am, providing a mini lecture or really guiding the lesson pretty centrally myself, then perhaps it is just the camera on me, and I'm randomly calling on students in the classroom, and I might randomly call on a student at home. And so that's just sort of a picture of how a normal classroom might work. But for example, if I were interested in, and then, another sort of fairly simple modality might be if students are doing independent work, where they're doing an independent research project guided by the teacher. I might provide students all with the same initial overview, and then provide support to student A and then student B in the classroom, jump on the computer to see how students C and D are doing. Some of those students, if they don't need that assistance, maybe they leave the class meeting online for a portion of time. These are all things that are sort of like close to the teacher's relationship with their students and how they run their classes. But these are all things that I think some of our teachers are already doing. I'm thinking of a teacher already who's more or less provides a mini lecture to start class, as an example, and then breaks students out to do some individual practice problems, and is constantly circulating the room, but also then checking the computer to see if students at home need help or assistance. That's a second mode. And then, we could go on from there. Perhaps if I am holding a seminar discussion where the focus is really on the students and their ideas, I may integrate the students at home in one of several ways. That, those students at home might merely be listening in on the seminar that students are holding, and then have the opportunity to respond. I might hold a facilitated discussion where intentionally a student in the classroom participates, followed by a student at home, followed by a student in the classroom, etc. I think the key to any of these strategies is intentionality, and the sort of intentional design for participatory engagement of all students. And I'd be lying if I said that that was easy, because it's not natural in the way that it is for a teacher who's been doing it in a classroom only for so long. But I think there's great potential for us to, again, extend our teaching and learning, but also maintain and deepen our connections with students on the days that they're at home, which, to be honest, even though I do think there's potential for us to teach more, my focus with our staff has really been on deepening our connections to students and supporting them in their learning more than anything else.
I appreciate that.
Peter, go ahead.
Peter.
Thank you. First of all, I would really like to thank you, Scott, and your team, because you've had to, in a 6-month period, come up with a plan, purchase the equipment, begin installation under a deadline of December 31st. And I think it's an amazing accomplishment, and the public ought to thank all of you folks for that really Herculean effort.
Thank you.
And my question is, while we're doing all this, have we been able to upgrade the video facilities and the Performing Arts Center so that when we're up and going with concerts and things like that, that we can provide some good performances for the public to view?
Yes, we purchased a top-end live streaming setup from Data Video Studios, which allows, I think it's 12 cameras and multiple sounds, and tie it into our sound production system so that we can actually produce television quality productions out of the GCA.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Just have to learn how to use it.
Elias, did you have something?
I guess this is more of a comment, but I haven't had the pleasure of taking part in a concurrent class yet so far this year. But I think I'm more just really excited at the fact of it hopefully providing a more immersive learning experience, and just taking that another step towards having it be more normal than obviously it has been so far. And I think it will be, what I love about the concurrent aspect rather than the live stream aspect is it will almost feel like you're a part of, like, I think it's as simple as just hearing your classmate's voice in the back of the class ask a question, and you think, wow, I haven't seen that person in like 8 to 10 months. It's just like almost it's just not the level of seeing them in person, but I'm just excited for that element of not only furthering the learning within the class, but just providing, as Mr. Hoffman alluded to, a more connected learning experience to the kids with cohort A and cohort A.
Thank you, Elias. I have I have one question, and then just a side comment is, how far along are we? If you were to say we were on a timeline, sounds like there's still some equipment that's being delivered this Friday to staff at the high school. How far along are we with this whole investment? Have we received all of our equipment? Are we expecting a lot more to come?
No, I would say we're 90% there with receiving everything, getting it into place. I think where the time now is actually getting it not only in their teacher's hand. Basically the live streaming equipment, short of a few things going to Maybe Wilson and 4-5, will all be in place by Monday, Tuesday of next week. And literally that's 25 setups at the high school and probably about 20 or so at the middle school 6-8. Other things that I also didn't mention that we also refreshed all 4th, 5th, and 6th grade laptops. They all got new Chromebooks. We're in the process of just making sure that those all got to the new kids, and only a few of those remote kids have not traded theirs in because their other ones are working fine. So there hasn't been a push to say, oh, I got to switch it out. So I would say we're like 90% there.
Okay. Cool. I know this was a big lift, so I'm just curious. I remember January in my head when we first initially started talking about this, and 90% is pretty awesome to be in January.
Yeah.
And then I just want to, well, go ahead.
Half of the MIW's projectors are scheduled for the 27th, 28th, that Wednesday, Thursday of next week to finish the projectors in those classrooms. So
Awesome. Mike says his 5th grader's updated Chromebook is a significant improvement. I just wanted to say, Chris, I appreciate it, and I'm guessing that this might be the intention as from the district, that the intention is to deepen the connection and support to students, and I'm really glad that that's the focus and not necessarily just the teaching or the academics behind it. I really think that is a huge need right now. So I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning that. I think it's really, really important to prioritize. Scott, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that the inventory is on hand. What hasn't happened is there's a few pieces that still have to be hung, projection units, things like that. But the inventory we have on hand, because we had to have it on hand and purchased by December 31st. So it's just a matter of just finishing up some minor installation pieces.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Does anyone else have any questions, either for administrators or for Dirk? Okay, I'm seeing none. Well, hopefully next time we have an update, we can see some of this in real time. I had mentioned to Jeff, knowing that we don't have the opportunity to really do a typical board goes back to school, I thought that maybe the board could participate in some classes somehow. And so it sounds like there's some opportunity there for the future to utilize some of this equipment at the same time. So thank you, Dirk. Appreciate all your work and all your team's work at the same time. So next we have a superintendent's report. Jeff, I will let you take it from here.
Yes, I'll be brief. I know the meeting is going on for a bit, so just want to congratulate Anna Pensa-Clive, whose work was selected to be exhibited in the UMass Dartmouth Emerging Young Artists for 2021 juried exhibition. So that's quite an honor for Anna, and that's great that we can recognize her. Sophomore Miranda Cohen, who recently took place in her division at the musical theater singing competition, sponsored by the main chapter of the National Association of Teachers of Singing. And Sebastian Alfreds and Matthew Gilbert, who are students at the high school as well, for participating in a virtual all-national honors chorus. And they'll be interacting with internationally renowned conductors, and actually this already occurred, I believe, and best singers from every state in the nation. Maple Wilson School, for the Friday Staff Development Day, is teaming up with Bates College in Lewiston. They'll be participating in a training around how to utilize best practices with diverse books and text. So we're excited to be welcoming them at Maple Wilson School. It's a virtual training. The 6-8 chorus at the middle school presented basically a kind of a musical on life during a pandemic. It's actually really, really neat. I'll have this link in my blog. Just beautiful, and it's amazing what kids can do even during virtual, with virtual tools to make music sound great. I don't know how they do it because I can't make music sound great in person. So how they do it in person and then virtually is amazing. And then the last thing tonight is just a very brief strategic plan update at the mid-year. This is more for the public. I've shared this with the board. We do have a strategic plan. It's largely been on hold this year. We have 3 priorities that we've continued with. Doesn't mean we've dropped all the work in the plan. Just means that we're really hyper-focused on 3 areas right now. First one being the pandemic response plan, which really was a novelty to the strategic plan, of course, in this unique year. Really been focused on health and safety. I want to thank the health team for all of their support and guidance and work, and give a special thanks to the nurses for contact tracing, and more contact tracing. And I will tell you, there hasn't been a vacation, there hasn't been a holiday, there hasn't been a weekend that has gone by, it feels like, at least in the last 3 months, where the nurses have not been contact tracing or following up on cases. So my thanks to the health team for all that they do. Obviously focused on the yellow zone. This week we're not in the yellow zone. We have been virtually the whole time school's been open, and I hope to get right back to that. But in-person learning obviously is a priority. Our virtual learning days and how to support students on those days, and then our remote school. The case response for COVID, we've certainly learned how to respond to the myriad of cases that have come forward in getting ready for red. We're testing that out more than we have, at least collectively as a district this week. And as you obviously have made the investment in live streaming, which will support this, communication around COVID, making sure that when we have cases that they are out there, that our website is transparent and has resources, and that we have been providing and will continue to provide opportunities for stakeholders to weigh in, which will be coming up again. And finally, mental health. And recently, this focus on mental health is obviously becoming very important as we're in the kind of the throes of winter and the throes of the pandemic having resurged after going through a period of, basically a lull in the summer and the fall. We knew this was coming back, and here it is. And how do we, navigate mental health issues that come up? The mental health team, which we have some members of our social workers group and our school counselor group, will be with us at the next board meeting to talk about mental health perspectives, what they're seeing, concerns, and answer questions from the board at the next meeting. And then finally is the K-5 facilities, also at the next meeting, which will be a hybrid meeting, regular and workshop. The workshop portion will be a presentation of a rough concept design by Oak Point Associates. They have largely completed that concept design. It now goes to the facilities committee at the end of January, and then we'll go to the board in workshop on February 1st. So that is moving right along. Obviously, we have the property that abuts the district is under contract. We've done some consulting with the town. We'll continue doing more. The design is almost finished, at least in the rough design that you'll be seeing. Facilities committee is looking at it, and obviously it's going to the board. After that, the board will have some decisions to make around a new building committee, or taking the existing building committee and deciding how that will be revamped, and then the communication and outreach that needs to occur as next steps in going forward. So that is the very quick view of the strategic plan, major priorities for the year, or mid-year, I should say.
Thank you, Jeff. So we'll move into committee reports. First is finance. Kevin?
Thank you. We have a meeting tomorrow morning, virtually, to go through, have a presentation by the superintendent on the budget, and then ask some questions following that. That's our big update right now.
Great, thank you. Anne from policy.
Hi, we just met before our full board meeting this evening and made some final revisions to a new policy for the boosters that we'll be bringing for first read to the board next month.
Awesome, thank you. Peter, facilities.
Jeff did all my work for me. We have a facilities committee meeting next Tuesday at 12:30. Oak Point has been hard at work and doing some additional tweaking. And as Jeff has said, barring anything that comes out of facilities, we should be able to make a report to the board on the 1st of February. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Peter. Curriculum, Mike Simmons.
Nothing new to report, but we do have a meeting next Thursday, the 28th at 4:30 p.m. virtually.
Awesome, thank you. And Elias, do you have anything to report from student land?
I mean, I guess the most relevant thing as of this week is just the switch to red. Where at the high school, we were gonna have 30-minute class. We were gonna, just given the instance of Martin Luther King Day and then a teacher day on Friday, we were gonna have all the block scheduling would be combining the 2 days in 2 30-minute classes for all classes, but now obviously that will be virtual. And I think overall the gauge of the student body, I think it is always a bit tough when you have not only things planned out, like particularly for me and being in full IB, we had bio planned out lab time on Wednesday to work on our bio IAs, which just given the unpredictability of this year, obviously can just go up in smoke just like that. And it's no one's fault. I think it's just tough that when those things come around, they can kind of take some wind out of the students' sails, just in the age of almost you want school more than you obviously don't want school, which is kind of a new mindset on this year. But I think we've all come to see how much we really cherish in-person learning. But aside from that, I'm looking forward to getting back into and I think all students are looking forward to hoping to get back in the yellow format. Along with looking optimistically to the future with live streaming and concurrent learning. So I think overall, it's just as unprecedented as this year as mental health can fluctuate in more than it would in a regular year. But I feel like from my perspective, it's almost good keeping in mind that this year could have been midterms week. Like usually Martin Luther King is midterms week and we don't have that to worry about. So there's always a silver lining.
I appreciate your positivity, Elias. All right, so moving on to communications, we have two just updates that came across just talking with other board members. First, during our workshop last time together, I had shared the Prince Memorial Library Book Club. And I know that Mike Williams and Jennifer Stewart had volunteered to participate, and Mike wrote to me asking if he could give a quick update. So Mike, do you want to give us an update? Maybe just a little bit of background on the club, if you can.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tyler. So it's folks at the Prince Memorial Library, Kelly, librarian there, and Jacqueline Young, the high school librarian at Greeley High, put this effort together where it's effectively created a book club for both teens and adults to discuss issues of race and equity through literature in over 4 months, one meeting per month, January, February, March, April, and taking it in different styles of books, different authors. And we had our first discussion last week, and it was fantastic. It was the book Pet. And I will absolutely butcher the brilliant author's name. Their name is Akwaeke Emezi, and it's an extraordinary story. It's hard to even summarize. It's effectively a teen who is dealing with monsters in their community. And it's that notion of what a monster is. A monster, a person who is hurting others, and it's not necessarily what you think. It sort of pushes your bounds of your accepted notions of monsters and how they're dealt with, of what they look like, how they're perceived. Is just really interesting. And the discussion was so rich. It was so engaging. It was wonderful just to be with different people in the community I hadn't talked with before, and to just really get into some really hard issues, but just in a really wonderful, comfortable way. So I encourage folks, if you're interested, just check out Prince Memorial Library website. It's right up there at the front. Next book's coming up in February. I think it's I Am Alfonso Jones, which is a graphic novel. So yeah, it's really good. I don't know, Jennifer, if you wanted to add anything too.
Mike, I think you did a good overview. I hadn't had a chance to read the book, so getting in, but it was definitely a great discussion to sit in on. And it would be nice if we could encourage some of our young adult readers to join up in the club. We had a strong representation from the older crowd, but it'd be nice to get kind of a mix of people in there. So it may be a good opportunity to do something with your child and have those discussions at home along with having it out in this forum. So thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tyler.
Awesome. Thank you guys for participating. And then Kate Perrin, I know you had mentioned something you wanted to share or at least bring to the board.
Yeah. So I've emailed Jeff. Thank you for being so responsive. I've reached out to some other community partners and leaders. I just am going to keep beating this drum of monitoring and creating an action plan for mental health of our students, our staff, and our community members as much as we can. I have never seen so much collective grief in my community. I have never seen such hard times for so many people. And so when we hear from the school social workers, I would really like to see the entire district team represented, each school, what they're seeing, and the action plan. I need a clear outline from them so that as a board member, I can support them through the budget process and through my board membership, because we absolutely have to get on this. And I think we're doing a pretty good job, but I think this is one of those things that we need to be exceptional at.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so we're going to move into executive session. So do I have a vote for that? Or a motion, sorry.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move into executive session. Thank you to everyone that is here. Appreciate your time and conversation.
Tyler,
Sorry, we have to vote.
Well, no, there's one item for action that I think
Yep, you're right. Sorry, I've made too many notes on my paper. Okay, so before we do that, we need to do an important vote, which is vote to authorize the superintendent to execute an extension of employment contracts for administrators. So I'll take a motion in a second, and then I think Jeff's going to give a little bit of background. So do I have a motion?
So moved. Ann Maximovich.
Thank you. And a second?
Second, Peter Bingham.
Thank you. Jeff, do you mind giving us a little bit of background on why this is here with us tonight?
Typically, this is an action item on the board's agenda in the second meeting in June. And for years and years, predating me, the administrator contracts were approved after the budget was approved. However, in the administrator's contracts, it says that there should be approval of the contracts prior to the first meeting in February, I think is how the wording is. So for years, we've not really been adhering to those, the contractual language. And I will say, coming from another district where it was always on schedule every year before the first meeting in February. That is something that I had said several months ago after the June vote, that we wanted to get this back on the right schedule. We've been trying to get all of our contracts on the right schedule for approval, whether it's continuing contract teachers, probationary teachers, and making sure that when I first came here, there was a holdover to carry contracts until after the budget was approved. We slowly got the teachers off of that cycle, started getting them approved when they should be, which is in April and May, depending on whether it's continuing contract or probationary. And so doing the same with the administrators and getting them on the right schedule. So I'm making a note of that, because for those of you who've been on the board for a while, you probably remember approving this item in June after the budget's been approved.
Okay, does anyone have any questions before we take a vote? Okay. So Peter Bingham,
Yes.
Kevin Desmond,
Yes.
Margot Harrington,
Yes.
Ann Maximovich,
Yes.
Tyler McGinley, yes. Kate Perrin,
Yes.
Mike Simmons,
Yes.
Jennifer Stewart,
Yes.
Mike Williams,
Yes.
and Elias Leggett-Barr.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, so now we will move into an executive session.
Already been moved. And second.
Okay, and second. So I didn't know if those still count because we had to back up. So
I think you need to state the reasons for going into executive session.
okay, so we are going to enter an executive session to discuss negotiations with MSAD 51 Education Association, MSAD 51 School Lunch Workers, and MSAD 51 Bus Drivers pursuant to State Statute 1 MRS SA 4056D. So if the motion and the second still stands, I will ask for a vote. Peter Bingham,
Yes.
Kevin Desmond,
Yes.
Margot Harrington,
Yes.
Ann Maximovich,
Yes.
Tyler McGinley, yes. Kate Perrin,
Yes.
Mike Simmons,
Yes.
Jennifer Stewart,
Yes.
Mike Williams,
Yes.
and Elias Leggett-Barr.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you to those that are with us tonight. Nice to see you in the screen. Elias, you are free to go as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Okay, so lastly, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Okay, and last roll call, Peter Bingham,
Certainly.
Kevin Desmond,
Yes.
Margot Harrington,
Yes.
Ann Maximovich,
Certainly, I like that. Certainly.
Tyler McGinley, certainly, Kate Perrin,
Yes.
Mike Simmons,
Yes.
Jennifer Stewart,
Yes.
Mike Williams, and Elias isn't with us. So thank you all for being here tonight. Talk with you all soon. Have a great night.
Tyler.